Hello and welcome. I'm Glenn Torres-Spelliscy, your instructor this year. Thanks for joining me.
Our focus this week is going to be on how to conduct foreign policy analysis. And indeed, one of the difficulties we face in the conduct of this course is in trying to locate serious academic works explaining actually how to do that analysis. You see, there are a lot of works that address issues of foreign policy, but as a Harvard professor, Professor Stephen Waltz, noted, these studies, the field of foreign policy analysis, quote, tends to focus on explaining why governments make the foreign policy decisions that they do, not on developing methods or techniques for analyzing different foreign policy options. So the literature investigates how regime-type bureaucratic politics interest groups in social and individual psychology and any other number of independent variables influence government decisions. Professor Walt continues, in other words, the subfield of foreign policy analysis does not tell you how to analyze a concrete policy problem or compare the merits of various alternative policy choices. Now, there is a value to that approach, that historical approach, in trying to understand why people made the decisions they did, and maybe even a predictive value to say if we know they decided some way in the past, we might be able to predict how they'll decide in the future. But definitionally, this approach of traditional foreign policy analysis is that of an individual on the outside looking in. It is the approach of the independent observer simply trying to understand or predict behavior of foreign policy decision makers. The approach I want to take in this course is somewhat different. My educational approach focuses on building problem-solving skills and on teaching methods of approaching and analyzing those problems. Therefore, what I'm trying to do is build a course that is geared towards helping those on the inside make decisions, creating processes and methods for the people who actually are in the field making the decisions, not just analyzing them from afar. And that's going to be our goal in both this week's lecture and in the class in general. Not to understand why other individuals make certain decisions, but to devise a process whereby we, as policymakers, can make those decisions. Now, the need for a renewed focus on how to best make policy has arguably never been more acute, particularly in the international realm. Americans have long since given up the idea or the ideal that we can be an isolationist country. Some still long for that in theory, but it's essentially a practical impossibility given American stature in the world. The fact is, globalization has made distant events critical to the welfare and well-being of our own country. We see this every day. We see how acts of groups of loosely organized non-state actors can affect our country. We see how labor practices in places like China and Africa and South Asia affect the US job market. And we see how environmental regulations in other parts of the world affect our climate. There's little doubt that the world is becoming increasingly interconnected, and each nation and the policymakers of those nations must therefore begin to include such global considerations in all of their policy making. So how do we do this? With that importance, with the importance of having that coherent global policy covering many areas, including security, economic prospects, environmental aspects, the question remains, how do we enact smart, forward-thinking policies that will help us effectuate our goals? And that is going to be the point of our discussion most of today and throughout the year. What processes can we use to make sure that our policy choices are properly vetted and best suited to meeting our goals? Indeed, the overall point of policy analysis is to determine what consequences will result from a particular set of actions, and thereby to determine which particular set of actions is most likely to reach the desired consequences of the party making the choice.
Now, the analyst does this by engaging in a three-step process.
First, the analyst must develop an empirical understanding of the issues at play. This is important because it provides structure to your analysis, and structure is the key to any successful analysis. Much like any architectural edifice, analytical success depends on developing a sound underlying structure. So the first step of any analytical process is to gather the evidence necessary to come to a meaningful conclusion. And now, after creating this empirical structure upon which analysis can be done, the analyst then engages in an evaluation of the choices that are available. The goal is to come up with a series of recommendations that decision makers can then apply.
The third step of the analysis is the communication of your results, and you should take time to think carefully about how best to achieve this. As I often said to colleagues, how you say something is often as important as what you say. So take time to think about the best way to communicate with the policymaker about your conclusions.
Now, there are many different methods by which you can conduct policy analysis. And Kugler, our reading this week, identifies 3 different methods. One is strategic evaluation, the second is systems analysis, and the third is operations research. And I'll discuss each of these in detail in the lecture. But the one we're going to focus on, the issue that we're going to spend the most of our time discussing in this course, is the strategic evaluation model. And that's because the strategic evaluation model is designed to provide policymakers with a high level of analysis that allows a decision maker to make an informed decision on issues ranging from everything from national security to foreign economic policy. As such, it is an appropriate model through which to analyze many of the big issues that we'll confront in this course. Remember, in the introductory lecture, I said I like to focus on big questions. And that's what the strategic evaluation method does. Now, the lecture is going to walk through the various stages of the strategic evaluation model in great detail, spend some time going through it and reading the reading by Dr. Kugler this week, and I will see you on the discussion board.